Well, welcome everybody to the Life West Leadership Line. Dr. Ron Oberstein here, and I've got a very good friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years since he was a student, I believe, at Life West, Dr. Stephen Silk. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the Life West Leadership Line.
Hey, Ron. Good to see your smiling face. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're going countries, right?
Yeah.
What I was going to say intercontinental, but I guess that's the right word, huh?
It's cross-border love.
Yeah,
cross-border love.
Cross-border, there it is. Well, Steve's just for those of you that don't know, Dr. Steve is a 1991 graduate of Life West, pushing 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hitting the big 3-0. He was chairman of the board of the Ontario Chiropractic Awareness Council. And Steve, I know you did a phenomenal job that. You did that for many years, like 15 years or something like that?
Yeah, pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And then also been serving on the board of Regents of Life West. He's been involved with the college for many, many years. In fact, if we get around to it, you can share that story about Herbert Ross Reaver when we brought Herbert Ross Reaver and Millie to Orange County many years ago. But Steve's just been involved in chiropractic. And the interesting thing that a lot of people probably don't know, and I didn't know unless you're, I know now, but, Steve is very, very big on research, reading research, data collection, all kinds of things like that. He's not a PhD in any manner, but he's a brilliant man. And Steve, I was just totally impressed with, the statistical things that you're doing, you're talking about, and all the things that are happening. And, how did you get involved in science? We're going to delve into it, but how'd you get involved in your love of science?
I've always had an interest in answering one very basic question, which is why. I'm sure I drove my parents absolutely nuts when I was a little guy because it was why? Skeptical by nature. And then as I got into high school, seeing that there was actually information available to either support or negate a viewpoint that I had on something. By the time I got to university, I was just intrigued with the volume of data that was available through at the time it would be going to the library and doing a catalog search. And now with the internet, what used to take me 9 hours can do it in 20 minutes. And just for full transparency, my Bachelor of Science degree is in kinesiology with an emphasis on human physiology and biomechanics and the social sciences. I do not have a degree in microbiology. I do not have a degree in immunology or virology, but I'm curious on numbers that those people are cranking out. The epidemiologists are cranking out. I'm just fascinated with the information. So it's just been always in me to try to answer the question why.
Yeah. And it's all about us to find our why, right? That's really what it's about. My question for you, Stephen, is this, and I know that there's been some really cool reports coming out of Ontario lately. Phenomenal reports, and I don't want to get so much into the COVID stuff. I feel like, we got to start moving, forward. And though it's still important and there's no minimizing it at all, but there was some really cool research that came out around the wearing of masks, right? And just
the Ontario Civil Liberties Association paper.
Yeah, share that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was just. They really, really did a deep dive. I was personally looking into this myself because I've known for years that the weave of the micron weave of your average masks is much, much, much wider than the diameter of the average virus that we inhale and exhale on a daily basis. But that group, the Ontario Civil Liberties Association, they really went overboard on bringing forth the data that does not support the routine wearing of masks, even up into the N95 level. It's just not there. The science isn't there.
Yeah. So look, I know there was a ton of different research that went on, right? And was it an extrapolation of different articles, or what was it? What did they do? Share with our viewers or listeners about that.
Yeah, and it's available on their website, the Ontario Civil Liberties Association. But they had one of their lead researchers just do a deep dive on all the research, the cumulative availability of research on masks, from the cloth mask up through the surgical grade mask up through the N95, and their utilization with regards to viruses, specifically the one that's getting so much press right now. And it was just a really well done paper. I was very impressed, and it just reaffirmed my own research, what I found to be true, which is that masks don't really do much. There's not much benefit to them in the average day utilization, both in public or in our offices.
Right. And I mean, actually, I've been hearing that there's harm. When you think about it.
Russell Blaylock, who's out on your coast, I heard him speak, 10, 15 years ago. A brilliant medical doctor, neuroscientist by
neurosurgeon, actually. And he's
education experience.
One of Dan Murphy's.
I saw something last week or the week before. Sorry to interrupt you.
One of Dan.
I saw something.
Wait. Russell Blaylock. I got introduced to Russell through Dan Murphy, because Dan Murphy just loves Russell's work, sees him as a strong foundational scientist, and the work that he does is really incredible. But continue.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that Dan Murphy, and if this is going out to Life West Tribe, I'm pretty sure everybody either knows him or was actually taught by him, as I was back when Dan was young and I had a full head of hair. But that was my first exposure to Russell Blaylock. And so a week or two ago, he put out a paper showing the downside of most masks on among other things, creating hypercapnia and increased carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, where you can get to the point where you can actually cause harm to yourself by wearing these masks on a regular basis, especially the thicker ones, the N95 ones.
Right, and the hypoxia also, right? I mean, that's like a huge one too, right? Loss of oxygenation in the blood.
I think there was a case in New Jersey last week where someone was wearing an N95 driving down the New Jersey Turnpike and wrapped their vehicle around a light standard because they passed out. Yeah,
and that's really sad. And and the other too the other thing too that's been coming out is not just about the whether the masks work or don't work, and it pretty much is pretty standard on the scientific level. And that Ontario study was really, really incredible. Talking about that the governments are not following the science, right?
That's my concern. Is we have all these public health decisions being made, and the science should be supporting them. It's weak to non-existent in many cases. But even just from a rational standpoint, when you look at the surgical style mask will filter 5 microns, particulate 5 microns and above. So it'll do a good job of filtering out household dust, which is 100 microns. Really good job of filtering out household dust. But this particular novel coronavirus is estimated to be 0.012 microns. And so you've got something that can only filter 5 microns. That's like a massive difference. It's like going to a door frame and spitting and hoping that the spittle hits the door frame when 9 times out of 10 it's going to sail right through.
Yeah.
So the data just doesn't, and the logic behind it just doesn't support it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Isn't it interesting, and that was, Dr. Blaylock's issues also, just that, we need to be looking at the science and the public health experts, right? And not moving with the governmental stuff, right? Like think before we move, and I get it. Listen, there's no harm to anybody. And I totally get it. Listen, I mean, this thing moves so quickly and people, but now that we're settled into the seat, so to speak, we're driving down the highway. We have an idea of what's going on. We have time to be able to look at the stuff. We're just not looking.
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement. When this thing first emerged, or in many cases erupted out of China, and appears to be very contagious and moves very quickly, I can understand there being a real panicky response. But as every country's wave starting to descend rather quickly, and it's descending in a similar manner, whether people have gone on full lockdown or been a little more open, like countries like Taiwan and Sweden. At this point, as more and more data is coming through, and there's a lot of research being done on this, and there's a lot of money being spent by governments right around the planet on the research, we're getting a lot better handle on what it is, what it isn't. And we have to remember, coming to basic understanding of the germ theory versus the terrain theory, is that, you know, in my mind, everything that goes on in the human experience comes down to minimizing toxic things, minimizing deficient things, and maximizing adaptability. And that applies to this just as much as anything. We're starting to see inferences that a lot of these spikes, because you look at cities like New York, why is such a huge spike there? And, you know, a couple hours up the road in Boston, it was a lot smaller. So if the virus is the root cause, why are you getting such different volumes of people showing frank infection, and why such higher death rates? And so in Canada, I can speak to Canadian data. This is as of Saturday at noon hour. That's the last time the data was reported from Health Canada, which would be our version of the CDC in the United States. There were 1,236,670 suspected cases from January 1st tested. And of the 1.23 million suspected cases, there was 68,678 tested positive. So 3% of the population of Canada were tested that were suspected. That means there's 1.23 million sick people, but only 5.6% of them tested positive for the coronavirus. Now, we know that the PCR test that they're using here in Canada as a false positive and a false negative rate. It's not the be-all, end-all. But from that, that's 5.6% of the tested people were positive.
Yeah.
Leads to what's called a case fatality rate of 7.4%, which sounds pretty high. But the estimates that are coming out are that the infection fatality rate, which is a different number, is a lot smaller. It's 0.3 to 1.0, because the evidence is showing that just because you're exposed to it doesn't mean you have frank illness. And they're suggesting that, you know, upwards of 50-60% of people get exposed to this thing have nothing more than a bit of a fatigue and maybe a bit of a sniffle, and they don't really feel ill. They just go about their daily routine.
Right.
So that skews the numbers quite a bit. And because what's getting most people's attention is this thing that originally appeared to be, you know, bubonic plague level deadly. It's not. I think it's worse than the flu. The average seasonal flu. There have been a couple of flu seasons that were worse in Ontario. Anyways, I can speak to Ontario. But it's not the beast that we originally thought it. So getting back to your original point, we can as we get more information, we can start being more logical and more reasonable in the steps we take. Because 99% of people that get exposed to this are going to be just fine. That's the data to date.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And Steve, I know listen, you're in Wiarton, Ontario. You're how many hours north of Toronto are you?
I'm from my downtown to Toronto downtown is almost exactly 3 hours. But my downtown is like very small. It's 2 blocks wide. I live in a town of 2,100 people. It's small. So there's more people on Life West campus most likely than there are in my town.
So you got a town of 2,100 people. You're right on the water, right?
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. Where are you on? What body of water is that?
My little town is on Georgian Bay, which is off of Lake Huron, one of the Great Lakes, right across from Michigan, your stomping grounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're due east from Ann Arbor. If you drive your car right across Lake Huron from Ann Arbor, you're going to come into my house.
That's so cool. And by the way, I used to be up in Georgian Bay every summer for about 7-8 summers in a row, through high school and college and undergraduate school, stuff like that. Because we used to go camping up there and canoeing and all kinds of things up in Georgian Bay. And it's just cold water, but it's beautiful.
Nice. Very cold. Very cold.
Yeah.
But we see, other than right now, this is a long weekend for us here, the Victoria Day, what we call the May 2-4. Normally you see a pile of Michigan plates, Ohio plates, but the borders are closed. And so we're not seeing the usual traffic of our brethren and cousins south of the border coming in this year. And my area really is very tourist dependent, and it is having an effect. And that's something else we need to take a look at, is the immeasurable cost of this, which is the effect on the economic pulse. I have a lot of seasonal workers in my town, in my practice, who haven't worked since last October. And there's only so much unemployment insurance coverage, and money's starting to get tight. In the county where I live here, one of the senior OPP officers, OPP is the Ontario Provincial Police, that's our provincial police officers. Domestic violence numbers have doubled in March and April, the calls for domestic violence. I have a woman in the office who works for Children's Aid. There's been a 30% spike in March. I haven't got April's data yet, but March, the 30% increase in neglected children and child violence in our area. And this is just the leading edge of the sword. I mean, I just have some very big concerns about how this is going to manifest as we go down the road if this lockdown, for lack of a better term, doesn't start to dial down.
Yeah. And you know, the interesting thing is no one's even looked at the socio, economics and the how this is going to affect people for how long, where it's going to go to, how are children going to be affected by this, having not being in school, not, doing their daily activities, being in houses, there's all this stuff that we've got to look at that will come out, when the data is there. But I'd love you to share something because, you practice in a town of 2,100 people, 2,200 people, maybe 25 if you got some people staying at the hotels coming through and, hanging out at Georgian Bay. And they're of course, they're not residents. And how many chiropractors are in your town?
There's myself,
your
and
office,
my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the two of us, the office I'm in, which you can see in the background here, and that picture right there was the changing the guard from my first chiropractor, Dr. Jack Ransberry. This room I'm in right now, which is a consultation room, is where I first sat down to discuss the potential impact that chiropractic would have on my health.
Wow.
And through circumstances, when I vowed I'd never come home because this is my hometown, never is a long time. And
that's very true. So it's so true.
So my practice here, we have one other practitioner in the town as well. There's a little town just north of us, about half an hour Lion's Head. We have a friend that practices there as well.
Great. So you've got so is there two people in your town, or just is yours and Ray Lynn's office the only one in town, or are there two offices there?
No, there's our office, and there's one other practitioner here in town.
Okay, good. So you got two offices serving 2,200 people, something like that, right? Just share with our listeners, because we have people who they feel like, San Francisco's too overpopulated, or I can't go there because there's not enough, not too many chiropractors, right? And here you are, if we were to look at the numbers, right? And you got two offices serving 2,100 people, 2,200 people. We got, you got 1,100 people per office, right? And yet
I'm seeing them all.
And you're doing great.
Well, and also, in all honesty, we draw from a very large area. And again, I give a lot of credit to the educational experience I had at Life West, where it was very broad. Our analysis is dramatically different from most of our colleagues, and the techniques that we deliver are dramatically different. I'm primarily an upper cervical practitioner. I do toggle recoil primarily. I draw up to an hour and a half, 2 hours away. 25% of my practice comes from the next largest center, which is Owen Sound, just a half hour away. Another 15% comes from another larger center, Port Elgin, which is about 45 minutes away. So if you look at the volume of people I'm serving from my town, it's maybe 40% of my patient base. The other 60% are coming from elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And people are prepared to make that drive when you deliver something different.
Right. And what was your journey in chiropractic? Because I don't think you started at Life West, right?
No. Well, I know that we've got a limited time. So my journey started with an earache when I was a little kid that ultimately 3 years later led me to this office. My experience here, Jack was very much a Gonstead-based practitioner. So I had that kind of a model of care. Then I went off to do my undergraduate at the University of Waterloo. He was pushing me to go to Palmer. I don't know why I gave such back. I didn't want to go to Palmer. Palmer's a great school. Davenport's not that greatest city, especially in the winter. It's a little chilly, but I opted to go to Toronto because it was convenient. It was easy. They were looking for, at the time, people with bachelor's degrees, which I had. I did a year at CMCC, knew this, I just can't do 4 years. It's not for me. And I met a chiropractor 3 years earlier when this wild man from Georgia showed up to do a presentation, and my chiropractor Jack said, "You got to go hear this guy. He's going to blow your mind." And Sid Williams was talking in Toronto, and I've never seen him like sit at the top of his game, like 1983, 84, right? It just blew my mind. I'm like, wow. And I met a chiropractor from Winnipeg, Gil Bohemian, who I believe you know. And Gil was a big DE guy. He gave me his card. He said, "If there's anything I could ever do for you, you call me." And when I finished my first year at CMCC and I was ready to change, I called him. And I'm still giving pushback because Jack was still, egging me on to go to Palmer. And I phoned Gil, and he said, we talked for a little bit. And he said, "You know what, you're perfect for the life movement. Would you rather go to a large school or a small school?" And I said, "I think I go to a small school." He said, "Well, then I'm going to give you the number of my friend Jerry Klum." He said, "You phone him, tell him I told you to call him, and he'll get you set up." So I get this number, I phone him, assuming it's the switchboard for Life Chiropractic College West, which I'd never heard of prior to my conversation with Gil. And it's Jerry's private line. It's like Jerry Klum, and the kind of caught me off guard. So we talked for about 10 minutes. And he said, "You make an excellent addition to our student body. I'm going to pass you along to Bonnie Buchter, who was the admissions director for foreign students at the time. And there were foreign students, there's like 5 of us. And then I just lock, stock, and barrel. I bought in and loaded up my stuff. Took my dad for a road trip. We drove down I-80, and there we are. And interestingly enough, the very first person I met when I walked on campus is now my wife.
Oh God, that's incredible.
It was, when they say it's naturally right, it's the same from Parker, naturally right. Well, it was definitely naturally right for me to go to Life West.
Yeah.
And I was out there in the late 80s. And it was so much fun being in the San Francisco Bay Area in my mid-20s in the 80s. It was an awesome experience.
You experienced the earthquake then, right? That happened. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there for the Lone Tree earthquake.
Yeah.
But I think that might have had something to do with me deciding not to stay. Yeah, that was a...
Well, I like what you said, Stephen. I like what you said when you said, "Well, I was looking at going to Palmer, but it's a little chilly in Davenport." Meanwhile, you're like 3 hours north of Toronto. Palmer, you could probably it would be like you wore a bathing suit there, in the wintertime from where you come from, But that's so cool.
Well, as I'm getting older, I'm getting less infatuated with snow. There was a time when I was a snow guy, snowmobile, cross country skiing, and tobogganing, pond hockey, and as I've hit 50, it's like I'm getting less enthused.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you because, you've been a huge supporter of Life West. You've, not just of your time and your talent, but also your treasure. You've always donated. You've always been there. You're calling students, doing anything you need to do, now serving on the Board of Regents, and, the things you do in Canada, and, and with the alliance that you were involved in, and now that's morphed, right? And now you guys have started a national association, right, in Canada. Yeah. And there's just all kinds of great things, and that you've been participating in, and I just want you to know, coming from the lower 48, we just thank you because Canada is so important, to North America and the Canadian chiropractors. Right now, Steve, we have probably anywhere between 70, it fluctuates between 70 and 85 Canadian students at any given time at Life West, right? And it's really just, we have a Thanksgiving dinner, we do all kinds of stuff, and we really want to train them so they go back to Canada and they take this vitalistic philosophy, and science, right, and a phenomenal technique, the whole package back to Canada, and be able to really help people, reach their optimal functioning capacity, right? And it's really what it's about. And you being there is just the work you've done on other people also, alongside you. Just want to thank you. So you've done a great job with that.
Thank you. And you, just to run on your point, the linking of the science, the philosophy, and the art, and being able to package it and coming out with a level of skill set and confidence. I mean, that's when I started practice. I hit the ground running. I went from nobody to I was seeing 125 a week within 3 months because my confidence was so strong. But my skill set, which compared to what it is today, was pretty rough. But, that's why I want to support the school. So the students coming behind me get a similar or better experience than I did, and let them hit the ground running, them be successful on all levels of their sphere of experience, so that they can enjoy life to the fullest and then help others do the same thing through this beautiful gift we have, which is the chiropractic adjustment.
Yeah, yeah. And we need to honor it. We need to treasure it. We need to understand it, right? And we also need to know the power, that's within everybody's body, right? The ability to
Absolutely.
heal, right? And that power within their body is far greater than people have been taught to believe. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. We have the power to adapt to our environment and recover if we become overwhelmed. Yeah. And that is innately driven into us as part of the design. And I see it manifest itself every single day with every single patient comes through my doors. And my confidence in that is unshakable at this point in time. Yeah. Unshakable.
Yep, that's what it is. Well, Stephen, I just want to thank you for being with us on the Leadership Line. It's been great seeing you and great hearing you, and I always love our conversations. And it's like I'm so happy that the rest of the world gets to kind of be part of our conversation, because Stephen and I, we could talk till
world.
We could talk till we get on a phone call for 15 minutes, and an hour and 45 minutes later, it's like, okay, man, we got to go to bed, whatever we're doing. But thank you, and thank you for everything you're doing in chiropractic. And thank you for keeping the candle lit, up in the Great White North.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, keep coming back, keep listening, spread this message. We've got a great message, and I think we're reframing our message right now because it truly is about adaptability, and it's always been about adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
But please just live your lives from above down, inside out. Live from faith and not fear. And make sure you keep hugging people around you, the people that you love, and reach out to people that you haven't spoke to in a while. Okay? Yep. Until the next Leadership Line, from Dr. Silk and myself, great seeing you, and we'll be back at you within the next probably week or so. Thanks.